Welcome, everybody, to a special Thursday night. FL Teams Live coming to you, catching up on a lot of sports news, getting back together for the first time in a couple weeks. Of course, FL Teams, you guys know it, love it. FLTeams.com. It's got your one stop shop for all your Florida sports, all your college, your pro. Right now is a great time of the year with the basketball going on with the Heat. You've got baseball getting kicked up with Rays and Marlins, and is of course the hockey in full swing. So great time to be a part of it. Run over to flteams.com. Follow flteams.com on any and all social media. I am Jeremiah Hensley, joined tonight with EJ Farbman. EJ, how are you, man?
Little dead inside. Sports have been a little slow. The NBA is the NBA. We all revolve around football, so it's a little slow for me right now. But we're still kicking.
Well, man, I think we got a little spoiled because that first little hit of like free agency and the whole coaching carousel stuff just fed us hard coming out of football. And now we're kind of in that lull in between, you know?
Well, not only that, but some of the biggest movements we've seen, like from either trade, free agency, Tom Brady coming back. Like it was a Deshaun Watson getting that $230 million guaranteed. Dude, it was a pretty big whirlwind in like a 2 week, 2.5 week span that we were spoiled with.
It was nonstop. And what's funny though is those moves are still having effect. I think we talked about this when we were doing kind of a coaching carousel deal. Mm-hmm. That when we go back to all of this, man, I can't wait to see the 30 for 30 on how Christian Kirk completely screwed up the wide receiver market for everybody.
Dude, every wide receiver that was part of the Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf draft class, every single one of them are like, pay me. If Christian Kirk can get that money, and he has had I won't say little production, but he hasn't had heavy production, right? To me, he's a third wing guy. Yeah. He can be a second fiddle if you have a really good first fiddle that draws a lot of attention. But dude, he has completely wrecked the wide receiver market for everybody. Now teams got to pay up.
Right. Well, and you're feeling the ripples because right now you're getting guys like Deebo Samuel, who's just basically drawn a line in the sand. Yep. And and I don't even think it's about pay anymore, right? I mean, Deebo, it sounded like it went a little deeper than that, yep. Which is, God, man, I go back and forth so much between being like an old bitter guy and like embracing this new era of what it is. Uh-huh. I just can't imagine anybody like just deciding, I don't like the role that you're putting me in on offense. I only want to be a receiver. I don't want to be a running back too. I don't want to do that slash stuff. So if that's all you got for me, get me out. But it happened in Miami with us with Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yep, same thing.
Minkah was like, I don't want to do all that. Yep. And it's odd because at the end of the day, I still look at it as like a job interview. It's like a company's hiring you and paying you to play a game. Like, I don't know, man.
So I heard a really good piece today on I think it was RotoWire. And they put it into a pretty good perspective that I hadn't really thought to see it from. Deebo Samuel is probably the most, from a versatility perspective, probably the most wide range receiver that we have in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. Lines up in the backfield, he'll line up in the slot, outside, run whatever it is, he can do it, right? And he's a menace once he gets the ball in his hands. You can't tackle him. He can run around you. He can run through you. So the way they kind of broke it down today was, when you look at the wear and tear, there's not a lot of running backs that live in the NFL past 30 years old, or they don't collect that contract past 30 years old. And his big issue with it is, from a physical standpoint, he wants that third contract. A lot of receivers get those three, the one after your rookie deal or that extends off your rookie deal. They usually get a pretty nice one after that as well, 3 or 4 years later. And then they get like a 2 or 3 year deal towards the end, right? And so when it broke down today, that's kind of what it was, is that he did not want to play the role of both and put that extra mileage and that extra contact on his body. He said in an interview, I listened to it, it was a clip, Rich Eisen had it, and it was a clip that said, if he asked Deebo Samuel, if you could choose one, would you rather catch the ball or run with the ball? He goes, catch the ball all day. So, with the scheme that they have put in place, San Francisco, it's just something he's not willing to put his body through anymore, I guess. That would be my
You
only
know,
answer. But I would think on any roster, because of how flexible he is, we don't know how he is as a pure receiver, right? We know how he is as a gadget. So
yes.
I can't pay you pure receiver money when you've done so many things in the backfield. Now, if you want to get the big money, let me pay you for both. But I can't pay you, Cooper Kupp numbers, or I can't pay you Calvin Johnson type numbers when you haven't. Yes, you're dangerous with the ball. Everybody knows it. But you still haven't lined up outside and caught 100 passes like DeAndre Hopkins has.
Right. So that's
That's
the
my
interesting.
big
That's what
issue
I
with
was.
it.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing in this is like Deebo when he first came in. Yeah, he made some plays and he was kind of known, but like
Yeah.
Deebo didn't become Deebo until they gadgeted all this stuff up
Yes.
and he
Yes.
exploited
Made him
mismatches
exotic.
everywhere.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
made him exotic. Yeah.
So if you're a guy who's basically saying you don't want to do that and you want to be pigeonholed, are you good enough to be pigeonholed?
Right. And that's
Right?
the big issue that a
How
lot
do
of
you
people
know that?
and that's the big issue a lot of people are having. It's like, look, we know you can play receiver, but can you play it at the volume that DeAndre Hopkins and Cooper Kupp and those guys are? Can you play it at that volume? Can you have a high catch percentage? Are you going to have a high target percentage? We know you're good on screens and you can turn something 2 yards into 55 yards, but can you make that out of a corner route or a post route? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's there, but it's not on tape as consistent enough as like what it is for DeAndre Hopkins or some of the bigger named receivers in the league that have already caught that big check.
Yeah, I mean, I look at a guy like Cordero Patterson, right? Who
Embrace it, embrace
just
it, man.
embrace it and go with
Yes,
it. Because here's the thing that Atlanta did with him that San Francisco also did a pretty good job of with Deebo. They didn't line him up to run between the tackles,
right,
right? I mean, he wasn't in there grinding for the tough 2 yard gain or the 3 yard gain.
right.
A lot of this was spread out on splits and
Yeah,
sprints and so you're not. I understand that running back wear and tear, but
yeah.
you're not
But you're not
Henry.
you're not you're
You're
not a
not
three
Derrick
down
Henry.
you're not a 3 down back banging between tackles
Exactly.
on second and inches or third and inches. If anything, they know the level of exoticness that Kyle Shanahan implements with Deebo. And 3/4 of the time, even when it's a second and inches, if Elijah Mitchell's not in the game or Jeff Wilson's not in the game, Debo's getting a toss and he's going to
Right.
beat a linebacker or a defensive end to the edge where they can't make a seal. So I get it, man. You're still taking those hits. It's still there. But to say you want pure receiver money, and in my opinion, he's never been a pure receiver. He's a very, very, very competent player. Obviously with how exotic they use him, but he's just to me, I see him as utility player number one, not wide receiver number one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like I said, I end up in this seat that's tough, man, because like I understand the business aspect of this
Oh,
more than
sure.
anything else, right? If you're a receiver, this offseason for receivers, get while the getting's good because this could get hot and it could go cold again,
Yeah.
right? The kind of money that's being pushed around that Miami gave to Tyreek Hill once they got the deal done, Christian Kirk, the deal that Devontae Adams, everybody is getting paid. So I understand, take your shot.
Sure.
But then there's that old school part of me, man, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but it's like that, when being a player on a team meant something more than just trying to strike that next payday. And I guess it's an odd thing though because it is a business.
Yeah,
and as a fan, you want loyalty, but you can understand why they don't have it when teams don't have it back.
Yeah, and I get it. That first big contract's like an insurance policy for them. If I run a toss play and I make a cut and I tear my ACL, but it's more than that. Like what they thought Teddy Bridgewater was. Nobody thought Teddy Bridgewater was going to play football again. If someone comes into that kind of injury, okay, well, I have my big contract behind me. I'm going to rehab. I'm going to get paid while I'm rehabbing. It's essentially like an insurance policy for them. But because Deebo Samuel's role is so undefined, as in he can do so many things, it's hard to say, yeah, let's give that man wide receiver one money at 4 years for 150 mil, whatever, and we can throw the ball to him 115 times and he'll catch it 100.
Yeah.
But to tap on that, if we're going to end on that real quick, I read a little bit of a rumor today, and AJ Brown's having similar issues. Even though he's a pure receiver, he's having similar issues with Tennessee right now. And a little rumor that I read was there was a Deebo Samuel video that went out not too long ago. He was on IG Live, he was getting a bunch of threats and stuff because
Yeah.
he had taken all of his 49ers stuff off of his social media, right? Which is
Yeah.
ridiculous, man. You're going to threaten the guy because he's uncertain about his future for his life and his family. I mean, fandom to an exaggerated degree, right? So there was a little rumor that came out, and Deebo came out and said that AJ Brown told him that the Titans apparently offered him $20 million a year. They offered AJ Brown $20 million a year, which there's still there he is.
Stop, Andrew.
There he is. So they offered him $20 million a year, right? Which it's still in negotiation. It's nothing concrete. And they told him they know he could get more somewhere else, but they're not going over $20 million a year. My thought on that is, I pay someone like AJ Brown that kind of money. He doesn't have the wear and tear miles that Deebo does. Not to say that Deebo doesn't deserve any money. He's a pure receiver. He can make plays. He's big bodied. He's fast. I'm a little nervous about that because besides Derrick Henry is only so much of our offense, right? If you don't have a receiver on the outside, play action is irrelevant. If you don't have a threat on the outside or tight end or whatever, play action's irrelevant. And he is what makes those play action wheels turn and what allows Derrick Henry to be, successful to a degree. Obviously, Derrick Henry puts in the work, but he makes Ryan Tannehill's job a lot easier when he can actually make a throw to him. And so the Deebo scenario going on, again, is another new ripple effect that is going to place on A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, because they're both in the same kind of position he is, not from not wanting to play a certain role, but from wanting that contract extension.
Sure. And it's just a weird spot again. Like you mentioned the Instagram Live thing. And I remember seeing that. Omar Kelly's a beat writer for the Dolphins. And I just saw a tweet go out that just said, like, welcome to sports in 2020.
It's sick, man.
And it really is sick that the guy, there's fandom, but there's this overkill. And I struggle with it myself. And I think I've talked about that and shown it. Is like, in truth, these guys owe us nothing. They entertain us.
Oh, absolutely.
They put their body on the line for everything, man.
Yeah.
But it's really easy when you're a fan that you feel like you put so much into something or so much heart that you deserve something back. But we've crossed such a line with that. Deebo is the one example you're talking about with IG Live. Another great one that came through today was Kyler Murray. Look, Kyler Murray, as far as I can remember, never once said that he wanted out of Arizona.
Nope.
That he was going to leave. He just took down some shit on social media and took away some mentions, and everybody's throwing his name in the ringer, and they're going to trade him, and they're going to do this. So eventually, it's like it has to be addressed.
And there's so many athletes out there. You can almost look at it at any sport. They may still be associated with the team, but they clear their IG stuff for whatever reason. They filter it out. They clear it. They take off personal pics, game pics, whatever. It's almost like they want a new slab each year, right? Sure. And so obviously the speculation came true with Deebo Samuel, as it obviously came to fruition that he wanted out. But to threaten harm on the guy because he doesn't see himself fitting in a scheme, I understand fandom, but to me that's extremist. You know what I mean? Like, it's nasty, it's disgusting. Those guys, like you said, they don't owe us anything. We as fans, we invest in merchandise, we invest in tickets. Tennessee would be an awesome winning spot for Deebo. Absolutely. He'd give us another element out of the backfield, another element out wide. But fans invest to a degree in merchandise and tickets and in time, but that still doesn't mean the player owes us, the individual owes us anything, right? It's to me, it's a really slippery slope, and the way, from what I saw, the way he was treated and talked to, and it's disgusting, man. It's absolutely disgusting.
If anything, it just drove a bigger wedge through a situation of like, why would you want to come back to this team or this organization?
Yeah, why would now, with those San Fran fans saying that stuff, if you didn't think you owed them anything before, now what's your thought process on that? Yeah. To what with them, I'm not going to give them any of my time now.
Yeah. So I keep saying this, and maybe it's again hopeful that Chris Greer made some good moves, but I thought the San Francisco first rounder would be good this year, right? But like I'm looking forward to next year as well, because I still think you know, we bring McDaniel, who hopefully takes a lot of the gadget away from the offense. If Deebo's out of that, you don't know what you got with Trey Lance. Like, I'm looking for another nice first-round pick for next year.
To me, it hurts George Kittle more than it does anybody.
Yep.
It hurts his stock, which, like, we already know the person he is. We already know what he can produce at. But I think his numbers are going to diminish because I don't think Trey Lance is ready to take on that full-time role. And without Deebo to take a lot of the pressure off of Trey Lance, I don't. There's not anyone else I look at in that offense besides George Kittle. He's not, quite as good of a gadget as Deebo is. There's no one I look at that offense and be like, you know what? Because of that person, Trey Lance can have some success. It's gonna, to me, if things play out like we see they are, Trey Lance gonna have a rough year next year.
Yeah, it could be bad. So it's funny. We'll tie them all together, but we kind of talked about the business end of this and the NFL angle. You know what? Let's take it back a notch, because something that I still love, and we'll talk about as we go through, is there's still a pageantry and at least a little bit of alma mater pride when it comes to college football.
I wish there was more, man.
College basketball, where the jersey still means something. So I know you, man, being a big Canes fan, spring game.
Yeah.
So fill me in, man. What'd you like? What didn't you? What did we see that we thought we would or we wouldn't?
So obviously, you can. I've seen a couple interviews drawn up. The culture, the attitude, the energy, the expectation, all that stuff has changed. It's obviously there's still 3 years of bad habits that Mario's got to work through. But him and his crew. But overall, man, night and day from the energy on the field. There was, from an offensive perspective anyway. I'll hit on that first real quick. The O-line. And that's a big Mario. That's a big point of emphasis. He loves games won in the trenches, offensive and defensive. He wants maulers up front. He wants grown folks that can take care of business that are going to protect his quarterback. Night and day difference in that spring game. There was gaping holes open for the running backs. Sometimes they'd go 4 or 5 yards without even being touched. Tyler Van Dyke had pockets. Somehow get Deebo be one of the greatest offseasons. God, could you imagine Waddle, Cheetah, and Deebo?
Look,
my God.
Again, like when I talk about entitlement, we'll get back to that. Like, dude, Dolphins fans, it's such a great roller coaster. If you've never been one, just experience it for an off season, man. There's still people fighting battles on Twitter with no one in particular about whether Tua's good or he isn't, because I don't even understand why that's still going on. And then immediately when you see this with Deebo, they're like, oh, he's coming to Miami too. I'm like, where? I mean, I love it, right? I love it. But how? Like,
I've heard San Francisco, if they were to, put him out on the table, essentially, from the reports I heard, nothing's came out specific. They essentially want a king's ransom for him.
Sure.
And I would 100% expect that in return.
I would like to see this, because San Francisco's doing it with Jimmy G right now. And in essence, Cleveland's doing it with Baker. And Houston kind of set the precedent last year, right? Houston kind of set the precedence with, the NFL didn't suspend Deshaun Watson. He said, I want out. They said, we're not trading you.
Yeah.
So do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, there's this line in the sand mentality that can be interesting. I mean, if you don't get what you want from this guy or for this guy, then why make a move?
Oh, you're under contract. Nope, you're under contract. You've got something that I can, if I really want to, I can hold you to it. I get player empowerment to a degree. But I don't like player empowerment when you don't think you shouldn't have to fulfill a contract that you signed, knowingly signed. That's where I think player empowerment's the worst, is when you obligate yourself to a contract and you say, you know what, I don't really like it here anymore. I want out. Well, maybe you should have thought about the future before you signed that contract and looked at those dollar signs,
Yeah, I haven't seen teams start to take as tough a stance as they seem to a little more now. A little bit of holdout. Pittsburgh did it a couple of times with guys, Le'Veon Bell and those guys. But, and I think from a wide receiver standpoint, as we circle that back around, and I know there's some interesting people that, with Miami and the Hurricanes that you saw in the spring game. But I also think college football is becoming a wide receiver factory right now, man. If anybody's coming out of college football ready to produce in the pros over the past 3 to 4 years, it's been wide receivers.
Everyone's looking for the next Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, they all know the route tree. They all know where they're coming. I mean, you've got instant impact, right?
What's up, Brandon? Yeah, everyone's looking for the next, the next Cooper Cup, the next DK Metcalf, the next AJ. I mean, everyone's looking for that. I mean, essentially like a franchise changing piece. And in my opinion, those guys are those type of foundational players.
3 of them last year. I mean,
Yeah.
you had Devontae Smith,
Yep.
Jalen Waddle, and Jamar Chase.
Yep.
Who, again, the route trees become so synonymous with what pro offenses are doing in college now.
Yep.
But as a wide receiver, there's not a huge amount of stuff you've got to learn. I mean, you've got to learn terminology, but the route tree is going to stay the same. You might get a concept that's different, but you can step in and produce.
And I think the route tree also depends on your quarterback. Like, Devontae Adams' route tree with Aaron Rodgers would be a lot more detailed than Devontae Adams' route tree with Tua. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the quarterback expects more when you kind of get on that level with them. Your route tree kind of advances itself a little bit. So obviously that kind of plays into it. Also, but yeah.
So we did mention the Hurricanes, the receivers there, man. In the spring game, I heard you touch on it just a little bit, but I mean, receivers weren't quite the showing you were hoping for, huh?
No, and I think there was like 25,000 people there, which wasn't a massive showing, but it was a good spring turnout. There wasn't the drops weren't as consistent as what we've seen them in the past. But it's still like, when you see someone drop, Jacoby George dropped one that should have been in his hands. I think he hurt one of his fingers on it, tried to go up with one hand. Keyshawn Smith dropped one over towards the sideline that TVD put actually in a really good spot. And it's just like, brings back a little bit of like PTSD, it's like, oh gosh, like don't let it happen again. We just went through this for 3 years.
Especially not if you're getting protection now.
No.
Gonna have time to throw the ball.
Well, and that was the thing, being spring there, it's they wear the black jerseys. It's almost like touch but still, there was no hands in his face. There was nothing to keep him off kilter from making a good, solid step up in the pocket type of throw. And then he makes one, and then somebody drops it, and it's just like, okay, I'll take it with a grain of salt. It's spring, and people also have to remember, Mario and his staff have only been with this group of players for barely a handful of months. And they have to weed out, 3-ish bad years of habits that were drawn up, whether it be on the field, off the field, work ethic, level of intensity. Like there's a lot of things that Mario and his crew have to kind of dig out of these guys. And they will. It'll come with time. I'm seeing this season as like a bridge season for next year. I expect 9 wins. 10 would be great, but I'm hopeful for 9. But it's just like you see those drops, and it's just like no.
So explain to me something, man, because I'm like, again, college football, I'm on the surface of, and I get it. I follow and keep up, but like, what's the purpose for this spring game, right? I mean, because you're obviously not going all out. It's against guys you're practicing against. Is it more of a showing to the media of the fans of the alma mater? Is it defining depth chart? Like, what are
I
fans
think it's
like you looking for out of a spring game?
So game speed reps, as close to game speed reps as you can get, obviously without the quarterback being hit or, without a Sean Taylor coming up and knocking your jock strap off. They obviously don't want that stuff happening to a degree if they can prevent it. I'm a big fan of seeing what the transfers can come in and offer, being that the portal, it accommodates so many, which, we'll tap into that here soon with the NIL and stuff. But I like seeing how players progress from year to year. And if there is a difference from, the December or January, whenever your bowl game is, to come springtime, have you worked on your catching? Have you worked on your run blocking, your footwork? There's just like, if you pay attention to detail, and I try to a lot when I watch these games, to me, it's the little things, because a bunch of little things going right is going to lead to that big thing that we've been hoping for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's, like the consistency with pass blocking, creating a mobile pocket for TVD, those things were great this spring. And those were things that we got better at towards the end of last year, but the 2 years prior, we weren't doing that very well. So to me, it's the little victories that I was trying not to be too critical of it, just because I know how little time Mario and crew has had with these guys. But to see those little victories that we had, there was a few drops here and there. Tackles, we led the country in missed tackles for the last 2 years. There was,
but you had a turnover chain.
Yeah, well, yeah, we had rings. We had a chain and rings, and
Right.
people were happy to put them on, even getting blown out. You know what I mean? And I'm glad those are gone. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad those are gone, man. In a team sport, I'm not a fan of individual accolades. You know what I mean? Like off the field stuff's one thing, end of the season stuff's one thing, but in game, I'm not a fan of individual accolades. I want you to play for the pride of the name on the back of the jersey and the logo on the helmet, and you're raised and dayed the type stuff. That's what I want on the football field. I don't want you to go and get a pick because you get to take IG pictures with stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
It's cool, it's neat, it's something that we kind of trend-setted with it a little bit because now everyone's doing it. But at the end of the day, it's like, I remember during the Bama game, I think we got a turnover late, and someone was like excited to put the turnover chain on, and it was like, dude, take that shit off. Like I don't want anyone to be happy of getting beat 41-17, and now you're getting to put on a piece of jewelry that's a turnover prop.
This is happening more and more though, because from what I'm hearing in the draft coming up, I think most people wouldn't argue that one of the most physically gifted prospects coming out is Thibodeau, that was in Oregon.
Yeah.
Right?
Kayvon, yeah.
But one of the biggest knocks on him was the fact that he went there based on the fact that he didn't think it would be good for his brand to play like Alabama was. I mean, so instead of playing for a national title, you wanted to somebody who's worried about their brand before they're worried about actual production.
Yeah.
That's a scary slope to be on.
To be honest, I don't know what brand you're making at Oregon that you can't make at 30 other schools around the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at Oklahoma, at Alabama, there's so many schools that you could make a better brand at because the marketing's only there for Oregon because of Phil Knight and Nike. That's it.
I mean, imagine though, if you're one of the Giants or one of the New York teams who desperately need defenders, and you've got 2 picks apiece coming in the top 10. If I'm a GM in New York and I hear that from a kid in college, there's no way I'm bringing him to New York. There's zero chance.
I'd rather him go play in Buffalo or what I mean,
Minnesota.
Or Cleveland even, or even New England wouldn't be too bad.
It's crazy though, man.
Yeah, but to hear, hey, I'm going to this school not because I can propel myself physically, but because I can work on my brand in the process of getting drafted. Maybe if there's a Trayvon Walker or an Aiden Hutchinson in front of you, I'm probably going to grab one of those guys before you.
Yeah. So, but you're right though. It's funny. It's like there was a culture swing for a minute of people starting to be that person, and looking at it. And I know we're going to touch on it in a minute or so, but the NILs, I think that was a big fear, or the NIL was are we going to create something where people go into business for themselves, so to speak.
And but, to wrap up the hurricane stuff real quick, because I want to jump into this NIL.
Yeah,
I was pleased with spring. I'd like to see the depth chart fill its way out. I was pleased with what I saw on defense. There was a lot of aggression. I think Mario's really going to get it right with these guys. Again, I'm one of those realists. This is a bridge year for me. This is a year that we build on those positives, we weed out those negatives, and we go into 2023 with like a really strong, we can really, really compete mindset. We got at Texas A&M and at Clemson this year, which those games, except for Clemson, the Texas A&M game it's a meter game, right? We're going to see how good we are right now to compete with those kind of teams. We did it last year with Bama. We got our poo pushed in. Now we're going to try it with Texas A&M. I like these games because there's not really – obviously, I want to win. I want to go to College Station. I want to pull out a W. If we don't, it's not the biggest loss for me because at least we're going to get to see where the program is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, with wrapping that, we're going to jump over to it. When I was talking or first looking at some of the NILs, I didn't know the first ever NIL deal in all of college sports was signed by a Miami Hurricane.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Tyler Van Dyke actually.
But it was the other quarterback.
Oh, you talking about De'Aaron King? Yeah, he was there. It was there last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the year before, excuse me, the year before.
Yeah, he was. It was. I saw a post that was up where something I was reading about NIL that was saying like congratulated like 12:01 on the first day that you could do it.
Yep.
He signed some deal with
Yep.
with a moving company.
Yep.
College Hunks hauling junk.
College Hunks hauling junk. Yeah. And
So,
see, we've talked about NIL, and I think we're really on the same page. And for me, I am A-okay with a player getting compensated for their likeness or their name, whatever, to be able to feed their family to a degree,
sure.
right? If little brother needs cleats for football, mom needs some new clothes, whatever an electric bill needs to be paid, whatever the case is, I am beyond okay with that principle, with that aspect of the NIL. With the transfer portal and college sports turning into a free agent market, and people deciding where they go, not because of the tradition, the logo on the helmet, the parents played there, the alma maters. Now people are projecting where they're going to go based on where the best NIL deals are. And I think it's going to work out really well for Miami, but I'm still not a fan of it because we're not getting kids that want to compete for the U on the side of their helmet. We're getting kids that want to work deals in during the season, off season, whatever, and like Kayvon Thibodeau grow their brand while they're down at Miami because it's easy to grow a brand in South Beach. You know what I mean? It's there. So I'm pretty sure we have fairly even point of views on what we see with the NIL. I am, like I said, I've had people come at me on Instagram pages and stuff, and I am A-okay with players getting compensation for their family, to help pay some bills, to help accommodate a loved one, whatever the case is. I don't like Urban Meyer wouldn't go 500 if he was coaching it. No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. I don't like the free agent market aspect, the bidding war that's taking place with college players.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. But I think what it is though is I think you and I even talked about it before, EJ. I think it's just shining a light on it, right?
Yes.
I mean, if anything, it's just bringing it out.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because these guys who were doing that were doing it before.
Yep. The Sabins, the Kirbys.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And well, I mean, here's the other part though. Is like I think what you talked about having that brand with the U. For me, college basketball. Growing up in North Carolina, man.
Heck yeah, man.
North Carolina Duke. That's unbelievable.
That's one of the biggest. Those two together are two of the biggest brands in college basketball.
Right. So now, what North Carolina did, and my understanding is one of the first colleges to do this, is they have set up an NIL group, so to speak.
Yeah.
So every athlete that's playing any sport for the University of North Carolina can be licensed out through people coming through the university to pose in their jerseys, buy the mascots, the logos, and all of this. And all of that money is essentially going into a university pool.
A pot. A team pot.
And that'll be dispersed out, right?
See, I like that better, and I tell you why. And it's not to say that everything should be even. I get working for your name and working for your brand and putting in the work. And, some people are just physically and athletically gifted above others. But there could be a struggling player that family struggles at home. And because they're not a big enough name or they're a redshirt junior, they're not getting the NIL money that they could be getting if there was like a team pot. I praise North Carolina's athletics for that. I'm not one of the guys that everyone should get a piece. I get people should work for theirs. But it's tough looking at it from that aspect. Like, there's struggling people everywhere, right? On every college team. And for North Carolina to look at and say, you know what, we're a big enough brand. We're going to give everyone at least a piece of the pie.
Right. Why not? Because when you think about it again, like baseball at the University of North Carolina is nothing. Okay.
Right.
Women's soccer, huge deal. Football has started to a little bit, but basketball. So if you've got one or two overshadowing brands like that, and I believe Notre Dame was another school talking about doing something similar.
Yeah, I think I did read that.
If you've got one sport that can spearhead it, by taking and creating this pot and pushing it out, you're going to improve it across the board. Because, I think the whole idea behind this NIL, if we want it to work right, is for it not to be pay for play, right? For it not to be an endorsement deal, but for this to be something that takes some of that financial pressure or stress off of a college athlete. Because
Right.
look, I'm that guy again. You get a free college education, and that's a big deal.
Hey,
But you're also expected to work out at 6 a.m. every morning.
yes, it's more than just academics.
It's
more than just academics.
It's a job. It's traveling. It's
Yep.
missing classes. It's coming back, and all of these press things that you're tied to do. So
Yep.
they're not normal students
Yep.
by any
No.
means. And where a normal student might work in the cafeteria or have a job where they're building up money for their food plan.
Sure.
If your job is being on the road and in press conferences and taking a picture at a car dealership, well, then maybe a little bit of that should come your way too.
Well, and it's different because those things are obligations. Those are things that they have to do. They have to travel here. They have to do a press conference here. It's not like, hey, if you got to work today, we can do it with somebody else. You can go make your money. So right. I agree with that. There should be a level of compensation for, essentially paying back their time. Like we're taking the time away from you from being able to work at, the local Foot Locker or car, whatever it is, to be able to make some money. So we're going to compensate you for it. I just hate how it's essentially redesigning the college football landscape. And I know Kirby Smart, I know Nick Saban have been giving money under the table for a long time. And Nick Saban came out not too long ago and had a pretty big complaint. I think there needs to be some regiments put in, some restrictions put in for it, but I don't think it needs to be abolished by any means. I do think that they deserve, for their likeness or for their hard work, however you want to define it. I do think there needs to be some compensation, but I think it needs to be reeled in and tightened up a little bit.
Well, now the other thing is, we were kind of joking earlier. My son was in here, was talking about I just got him, a PS4 and now getting back into the sports games. There's a big part of me that thankfully NIL is going to return likeness to the college games, right? Yeah. I mean, used to when I would play NCAA football, my starting quarterback was wearing the same number as my starting quarterback. You know what I'm saying? And they even had a little bit of likeness. All that went away, but now that whole idea is that the NCAA will be able to license that. Yeah. Again, players' likenesses and come underneath it so that you can bring that back to the game.
And I saw where Andrew just kind of put in, would we see some sort of revenue sharing setup similar to the NFL? And I think the only reason that's tough is because different conferences bring in different money. So it would always have to be a like Duke in the ACC, for example, brings in different money for, if we're just talking about football than Clemson does. So I don't know how that would structure, but I do think some sort of maybe by conference revenue sharing or by
they already have a model in place, right? Like the Big Ten network and the bowls, every
SEC
in the Big Ten that goes, the SEC, it's all pulled up and it trickles through. So, I can see something like that happening, but I think I'm on the same page with where you're at and even what Andrew's kind of alluding to there. Our better chance of seeing something like that is more with these group deals as opposed to individual deals.
Well, I could see it like there was a handful of Miami players. They got car deals, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it was Dodge, I think Tyler Van Dyke got one with BMW. I think something like that should be more umbrella than what you individually get for your name. You know what I mean? Because obviously your name, if you're QB1, is going to carry a different weight than linebacker 4, right? It's from that degree, it's a little bit different. But I could see where the branding, the big names, whether it's the PSD underwear, the car lots, I could see where that could be more of a revenue shared umbrella than it would be from just an individual perspective.
So the idea in the Chapel Hill one is that there is that joint, but that every person is still eligible to do individual deals. Mm-hmm. Every person can still have their own individual deal outside of that. This is going to be more university sponsored where you're doing it in groups, right? Where they're going to put the seniors together or, a top athlete.
I like that too. I like that too by class. Right. I like that too by class. Yeah.
And doing it, you can have your best female and male baseball, whatever, basketball, softball, baseball, whatever, and lumping them together. And that's how they're pulling it in for everybody. But individuals are going to be, they're like the Tyler Van Dykes. They're going to bring in more money than
it's inevitable. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, absolutely, I think I'm seeing an impact of, and maybe it's why I cannot sing enough praises of the NIL, is literally what I'm watching happen to the North Carolina basketball program. Yep. And, having this come over without a world of NIL, without a world where these guys could still make some level of money, would they still, care or come back the way they were. Because to me, what used to make college basketball great, and it still does almost every March, is one team that has 4 seniors and a junior. Right? Guys who have been there and they played through
battle tested, the battle tested team. Yeah.
Right, as opposed to that John Calipari, 5
one and done
Americans and they're one and dones.
Yeah.
So I'm loving what I'm seeing in Carolina. Armando Beckett could have. I mean, look, he probably would have been a fringe first rounder in the NBA, but that was enough for guys to jump way before him.
Hey, the guy can. There is plenty of Premier Leagues. I train a guy that's in one of them. There is plenty of Premier Leagues over in Spain, Italy, that you can make some serious money. China pays a lot of money. Jimmer Fredette was making a bunch of money. Stephon Marbury was making a bunch. There are plenty of Premier Leagues that he could have gone to. But I think, like you said, this bit of college financial stability, not worrying about mom having to pay bills or working 3 jobs, they can come back, feel comfortable maybe finishing their education. And then, obviously, they're going to be set up next year with Hubert in the way he's recruiting as well to go after another title chase.
And it's so – to me, maybe I am oversimplifying or I'm rose-colored glasses on it, because I do think there are going to be people out there that are looking for the score and everything else. But I think a big part of this might be this NIL doesn't have to be life-altering money. But if you're a student athlete and maybe you got a couple $100 extra bucks in the bank, and you can go out on the weekend, you can order food for the dorm, and you're not worried about calling on mom or dad to do that, in itself makes that experience feel not quite so broke.
Right. And you can start to compartmentalize and not necessarily take your work home with you, right? So when you go back to the dorm, you can kick your slides off and you can go grab something to eat or DoorDash something. And you can almost kind of separate yourself from the school and sport aspect of it and still be a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid at the same time.
Yeah, and what I love, again, going back to that whole idea of the college itself getting involved. Now, there are some groups who are anti that altogether. Right. They really think that a university setting up an umbrella like that is going to promote pay for play. Almost like, look, we bring in all this money and we'll just push it over here. So there's got to be regulations in that. But it should mean something, damn it. It should mean something to wear the Carolina jersey. It should mean something to put the U on your helmet. It should mean something. Look, it goes back to what we were saying in the NFL. We say, like, we're fans of these teams and we feel like we give to them, that they don't owe us anything. In college, there's a part of a legacy and alumni who support and make those things grow and what they are, that it means something to that tradition. And I'm hoping, and it looks like, at least in basketball, outside of this transfer portal, that this could start bringing a little bit of that back, of guys who stay a little longer, that there's a little more pride in the brand.
And here's kind of my take, just to clear it up for people who may not like my opinion on the transfer portal. It's not that I don't like the transfer portal. I get not everyone's built for a position that they go into year 1, year 3. Things change, coaches change, schemes change. I get looking for a new opportunity, but hopping in the portal just because Boise State doesn't have the NIL deals that USC does it's my bigger issue with it. I'm old school, like similar to you. I'm old school with the tradition. I've been to a few UT Knoxville games up in Neyland, and the tradition of running through the T when you come out of the tunnel. You know what I mean? Running through the smoke at Hard Rock or what used to be the Orange Bowl. Like, to me, if I'm playing a game, the money's going to come if you're good enough, right? To me, I'm bigger on having kids on the field that are diehards, right? They bleed the color of team that you are, and I'm not, this is a little cliche, leave blood, sweat, and tears on the field, but I want that. I want that from the players, because if you play a game, but when you go home you're still catching a check from the BMW dealership down the lot, it doesn't mean as much. And fans can see it, coaches can see it, and it's just, to me, it's not good for the brand in the long term.
Right. I think, honestly, it's, all things that I fell in love with sports a long time ago were, I can't remember, anybody that went to high school, at least around my age, right? Who your rival high school was. And it didn't matter what sport it was, but there was one high school that you guys just didn't get along with each other, and that game meant a little more to you.
Sure.
Right? that has even started to get watered down now because all of these kids are joining AAU teams or anything else, and they're all playing together, and it's no longer, and there's academies, so you're already starting to break it at that level. When you get to the college, man, seeing Carolina and Duke in the Final Four this year was something I could have never dreamed of.
Better give you butterflies the whole week.
It was unbelievable. And what was even better about that, I can't speak for Duke because I didn't watch too much of them coming up to it, but every player on Carolina understood and knew what that meant. They all knew the history of Stackhouse hitting a half-court three, of Hansborough with the nose plugged.
Christian Leitner hitting, but all of it.
They knew that, and it meant something.
Now, I saw Andrew put a little question at the bottom. I think it was something referring to a stipend. Stipend for players. I said that since day one, that each player should be divvied X amount of cash per month, right? Almost like a paycheck. Like you have a direct deposit with the university or whatever bank you want to go through. Here's $3,000 for the month. And whatever you do with it is whatever you want to do with it. But just having players running on, 10 grand, 15 grand, depending on obviously the NIL deal, running with that kind of cash in your pocket as a student athlete for whatever university, I was big on there being some sort of like monitored distribution from the university of the money going to those players.
So look, if you want to talk about how you think this can make an impact truly, let's tie that together with one other thing. If you're a university and you control the amount of the stipend coming in, you can also control what's required in order to have that stipend.
Oh, sure.
What I mean by that isn't you've got to be at practice, you got to have this stat, that stat.
But regulating
what I'm saying is, no, money management. If these are student athletes at that time, if you're going to be allotting them so much money per month and then set it aside, right? Teach these people. Again, I know I'm harping back to Carolina because it's NIL, whatever, but Dean Smith started a long time ago when he first took over North Carolina. One class that every basketball player from your star to your walk-on takes is public speaking. They all take courses on public speaking because at some point in time they're going to be interviewed and they're going to be representing the college and the program, and they need to sound educated as such. Okay, so you could do that and teach these athletes so they don't end up broke when they get a first round deal and the first contract goes out and now they're bankrupt.
Well, it's the same thing with how the NFL draft does it. When you're a prospect coming into the league, they put you through essentially like a not really like a money management, but they teach you how to be smart with your finances, because 3/4 of the time when people get that big NFL check, that first round pick or whatever, there's not a lot of people that don't blow, you know what I mean? Like it's guys that don't come from a lot of money, wherever walk of life they're from, but there's almost like X amount of classes they have to take, they're required to take to make sure that they've at least been told the knowledge. Monitor distribution.
So if you look at the monitor distribution, again, that's in a course that you're taking with them, you understand and know what that monitor distribution is going to be. Have them create a budget. Something that simple, stuff that people will never teach you that's going to be a real life skill that you will need.
If you look at schools nowadays too, I'm sure you're aware because you have a kid, balancing a checkbook's not taught anymore. Knowing what good credit is and bad credit is not taught anymore. Those are things at this level, because of how much money a lot of players are coming into, because the NIL deals are just going to get bigger. Tyler Van Dyke's already racking in almost close to six figures a year with the new BMW deal he got. It's not the deals aren't getting smaller, they're getting bigger. So for me, it's more important now to nip that stuff in the butt and have players going forward know how to manage those finances coming through, and monitored budgets for the staff or the deans or the ADs coming down to the players. I think that's super, super important.
I think it's, and you talked about how the NFL does that. Stephen Ross still does it every year. For any new Dolphin coming in and first, any players eligible, they'll do a weekend getaway. He has guys like Warren Buffett come in and speak, and like teaching people legit money skills so that you're not just going to be broke in 3 to 4 years. I mean, you can't be, but
like we said, like the high school curriculum's changed. You don't learn a lot of that stuff nowadays, and to be honest with you, there's probably not a lot of parents that go over stuff like that with athletes these days. So for the university transitioning boys into men, I think that's a huge stepping stone. Should be a huge stepping stones, something that they should harp on. Like I said, the money's not getting smaller, right? We've agreed on the fact that the NIL deals are just going to get bigger.
Yeah.
So the more money that comes into play, the more trouble that comes into play too, right?
Yeah.
So let's try to prevent that, and let's monitor it to a degree, right?
Sure. And you would think, the ins and the outs, but you take if a school was to do that again in that giant pot sort of way.
Yeah.
Okay, you can say that the school's been making money off these athletes for forever and never gave the athletes any. Okay, I get that, but at the same time, there are going to be athletes who are targeted because of the school that they go to and the brand that school represents. So again, that money coming in control of the school and allowing them to administer that so that it supports all, right? Because that's the other thing. I mean, you see this stuff that just dies. I mean, there's certain colleges that can't even keep sports together anymore, right?
Yeah,
was it UAB? Was it UAB
yeah, they
had football, and then
I was about to say they lost it for like a year or two, right? Because of finances. Yeah. But it teaches kids from a financial perspective to know the difference between a need and a want as well.
Right.
By giving them money, hey, you don't need those Jordans. You just bought some last check. Let's not. And I'm big on that stuff. Like that's just how I am personally.
Right.
A lot of kids are a little bit different nowadays because social media is so heavily influenced. It's the image that matters, right?
Sure.
With the financial aspect of it, telling kids there's a difference between a need and a want. If you spend your $3,000 on 2 pairs of shoes this month, yeah, it is what it is.
Right.
Like,
and the only way you could control them doing it is you would have to have control of that stipend and how it's given out, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to blow the class off. And take it seriously.
Yeah.
No, I think we're at the forefront of it. I like it. I think again, I hope it can bring some tradition back, right?
Yeah. Like I said,
maybe bleed through that.
I've always been a fan of the NIL for the direct intention and the principle of players, kids, however you want to describe them, being able to help, needy situation back home. I've always been a fan of that. You never know what's going on in the kid's life, whether it's an illness from a relative, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever. I completely and wholeheartedly understand that. Yeah. It's the bidding war that I'm not a fan of, and then it's the kids not learning basic money management. You know what I mean? Because that's a lot of money.
Well, the job of becoming a college coach, and I know we just barely mentioned a little bit, but being a college coach has definitely taken on a different aspect now with the NIL, right? Because you all of a sudden can really go away from those kids in college who needed you for that scholarship and listen to every word you say, Coach Saban, sir, Coach Saban.
Yeah,
right? To, I'm signed with BMW. I'm already making $100K.
I don't care.
My ankle hurts.
Yeah,
right?
I can't play this weekend.
Exactly. So it's going to be a fine line, but I'll go back again, man. The stuff that I'm just riding that high out of is all Hubert Davis and everything that he said through all the tournament and everything that he talked about. Really, man, if more coaches took that approach to what they're doing, what an impact. I mean, everything was about the moments. It was about these kids in these moments. He was like, that's all I've said is I want them to have memories in those jerseys like I had memories in those jerseys.
Yeah, and I think Hubert Davis is a heck of a coach, obviously. I think he's a heck of a mentor, but I also think he's a heck of a father because that's what that is coming out of him is it's that father coming out of him. He doesn't if you make a bucket, that's awesome. At the end of the day, I want you to be a good person. You know what I mean? And I think that's what more coaches looking after their players with these finances should strive for. Is that, look, I'm not here to tell you what you can and can't do with your money. I'm here to explain to you what you should and shouldn't do with it. Whatever you do with it is obviously it's on you inevitably. But that father role and that Hubert has, I don't want to say adopted because I think that's kind of how he's always been.
Yeah.
But that he's implemented in his coaching. I wish more coaches would take a quick peek in the mirror and model that, man, because people need it. Players need it. You know what I mean?
Dude, I think that's again, we can get spoiled in that sense and lose our thought that, again, this is an 18 or 19-year-old kid who, God knows whatever kind of situation they came from, good or bad.
Sure.
Right? But they're in a brand new place with brand new people. They're being treated like gods all over the place. Like at one of the most vulnerable times in any man's life, young man's life at that age, you can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
So, well, look, man, dude, it's been great catching back up on everything. We can't let it go this long next time. But dude, we got the NFL draft coming up. A couple other great things. I know you are super excited about the Hurricanes. We got
Oh yeah,
Twitter,
man.
the Twitter
Oh
now,
yeah.
the Instagram. So where can everybody go to find you on that, man, for your Hurricanes?
Yep. EJ_fit20. I usually post some Hurricane stuff here and there. And then I'm on the Twitter as well. So anyone who wants to find EJ Farbman at Twitter, I've got 94 followers. So
there you go. Looking at triple digits, baby.
Hey, I'm 6 away, man. Who wants to be my 6? Who wants to be my 6 more?
That's right. Look, and then, dude, really looking forward to the college football season and talking more Hurricanes and what we can do here at FL Teams with it, man. It's going to be great.
Well, being that the Tar Heels share the ACC with them, there's plenty of time for Tar Heel talk because we do share a conference with you guys.
I love it. So that I'm looking forward to all that. For EJ, I'm Jeremiah Hensley. It was great to see you guys again. Won't be so long next time. I like to end everything on a good note. So we can wrap it up by saying, no matter how bad your week has been or your day or anything else, at least you weren't on a plane getting punched by Mike Tyson today.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Dude,
multiple times.
What the? Like, of all the situations you could possibly, not that you would stand much of a chance against Tyson anyway, but you're in the middle seat on a plane.
Intoxicated.
That's a nightmare.
Intoxicated or not, you have to know who you're talking to. And the tattoo kind of says it all. There's not many people that have that tribal on the side of their face.
Right.
Let's be aware of our surroundings before we talk trash to one of the greatest pound for pound boxers ever, one of the greatest heavyweight boxers ever.
Right. In a confined space. Right?
Yeah, like you got anywhere to go.
Right.
Yeah.
You can take educated guesses sometimes with like, you know what? I can talk a little smack. He ain't gonna do nothing. We're on a plane full of people. Mike Tyson's not the guy you say
He don't
Tyson
care.
Will take you down. Like, he's like, okay, get the cameras ready. Like, they were screaming at him from 5 rows back, let it go, and Mike's still jabbing.
Yeah, I'm Mike Tyson. I'm still gonna rearrange your face at the end of the day if you want to talk.
And let's be real, right? Tyson lost every penny that he's gonna lose over this situation when that first jab just grazed the guy's chin.
100%.
So at that point, you're punching for free, right?
Hey, you look, like you said, you've lost money on the first punch. That means punch 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are all free.
They're all free, right? Buy the first
they're gonna be the same amount whether it's 1 punch or 20 punches.
That's unbelievable. All right, I gotta get this little munchkin off the bed, man. Always, thank you guys for joining us. FL Teams. Make sure FLTeams.com. Say bye to everybody, Jackson.
Bye.
We'll see you guys.